I'm very conflicted on this device. It's the Neo Pocket Micro, a device very clearly modeled after the old GBA Micro from 2005, and in many ways I love it, ways that I'll go over throughout this video. But there are also many things, big and small, about this device that hinder the gameplay experience and just the overall usage experience of this device. So 2 quick notes before we get into this review. Obviously, I'm back in the setup, and for the time being, I'm using my HyperX mic that I brought with me because I don't want to deal with the issues I had the last time I filmed in here with like audio not being picked up correctly. That was just annoying. And also, more importantly, if you've been following emulation content on YouTube for a little while now, you've probably noticed that Nintendo's been striking a lot of emulation content, especially from Retro Game Corps. And for the sake of my channel and the sake of emulation in general, I think I'm going to abstain from showing Nintendo Switch and Wii U footage running on any of these devices in the future for the time being. I don't think showing off consoles like the 3DS, DS, GameCube, Wii, I don't think showing those off will anger Nintendo enough for them to strike me or whatever, but I do want to be safe. So for the time being, no Nintendo Switch and no Wii U coverage. I will talk about them. I will talk about how they run. I just will not show them because I'm trying to not get taken down here. I like my channel as it is, and I'm trying to not get it deleted. So at least for right now, for all of the devices I get in the future that can run Nintendo Switch or Wii U games, now that there's a Wii U CMU port, an Android CMU port, I will not be covering them. I will be talking about them. I'll tell you how they run and if I had any issues with games, but I'm not going to show them. So opening this thing up was a pretty nice experience. If you've watched my last 2 videos on this device, you know that for backing this thing within the first 7 days of its Indiegogo campaign, I got a gift box with a bunch of things in it. And I appreciate all of them. But the only things I've really been using are the stand, the joystick grips, I guess they're called, and the carrying bag. The unboxing experience was very simple aside from those add-ons, which I really like and made it very simple to get onto the device and start using it. But then came time to set it up and not everything was as easy and simple as I had hoped. Turning it on gave the usual Android setup screen that all of these devices have, which is fine. It was kind of a pain to go through all of this on a small screen, but the biggest issue I ran into getting this thing set up, which you would know if you watched my unboxing video, was getting games onto this thing. For some reason, no matter what cable I used, this thing would not show up on my laptop. And connecting my portable SSD didn't work either, which was really frustrating. I had to resort to downloading an FTP app and using FileZilla on my laptop to transfer the ROMs, which was so annoying and slow. It was so slow that during the process of me transferring the ROMs, I left the room and started having like an hour-long conversation with my friends just waiting for that to transfer. I cut almost all of that out of my unboxing video so you wouldn't know if you watched the video, but it was very annoying. But it worked in the end, so I guess it's fine. You know what? No, actually it's not fine, because first of all, what do you mean I can't transfer files over USB-C? And second of all, I was watching Bob Wolf's review on the Wolf Den channel of this device, and he said he got it to work by going into settings, going into connected devices, and turning on USB mode. And I thought, wow, that's annoying, but at least there's a fix. But guess what? Doesn't work for me. This may seem like such a small issue, but I assure you, when you're trying to get games onto a device that's sole purpose is to play retro games and games from a specific console, and you can't do that, it's very, very annoying. This issue really isn't an issue as much as it is a suggestion for Neo for their future Android devices. I would love if they did what Retroid did with their Android devices, and upon setup, let you choose what emulators you wanted to have installed once you just open the device. Because it's not that big of a deal, but I much prefer that on Retroid devices than having to go into Google Play or Chrome or a backup file I have to download all of the emulators I want to use on a certain device. Being able to do it just from the startup screen, the setup screen, would be very nice, very useful. There are probably going to be people who don't like the rectangular boxy design they went with on a device like this, but I think it works really well, especially on a device like this. It's not the most ergonomic, but for a device that I think is mainly supposed to be a showpiece or like a pocketable device that you can take really anywhere, I'm not sure I'm really looking for the most ergonomic device possible. Also, I still really like the red color. I'm not sure how well it'll show up on camera, but it's deep and glossy on the front, which does make for more reflections than I'd like, but it's not bad enough that it becomes an issue while playing. Like the glare is not really something that becomes an issue. The rest of the device is very matte and shows barely any reflections, which also looks really nice, and the color isn't very different on the back compared to the front, which I love. There's a micro SD card slot on the left side that has gone unused by me because the 256 gigabytes of storage is enough for all the games I want to play. The right side does kind of confuse me though. There are two buttons. One says RC and the other just has 3 dots. The one with 3 dots I think just brings you to the home menu, but RC does absolutely nothing. I'm not sure if you can map it to something or what, but it does absolutely nothing for me. Also, the start and select buttons are on the bottom left, which is fine. And the opposite side is the INEO sidebar button and the home button. These placements are fine, but on more than one occasion when I put this thing down, like on a treadmill or on the stand this thing came with, one of these buttons will get pressed and it will mess up my game. Mostly with the home button, because most of the time I'll be playing a game on RetroArch and pressing the home button when I'm in RetroArch closes the game and makes me lose all my progress, which is really annoying and pisses me off. There is a lot of space on here that isn't taken up by the screen, and I do appreciate that they space the controls out a little bit, even if it doesn't do much for ergonomics in the end. The controls though, for the most part, feel really nice. The D-pad feels really good, and I think it's a nice size for a device that's small. It's not super clicky, which I'd prefer, but I haven't had any issues with misinputs or anything that would hinder the gameplay experience, so I think this is really good. The face buttons are smaller and closer together than I would like, but they feel fine. They're not extraordinary and they're not horrible, which I guess is all I can really ask for. The shoulder buttons fall into a similar category, but I enjoy using them more than I enjoy the face buttons, mostly because I don't use them all too often, and even if I do, it's super easy because of where they're placed. I know some people might prefer stacked shoulder buttons like we get on bigger devices, but I think, like I said, for a device like this, where you're not going to be using it all that often, and if you are, it's usually only one of these, I think they're fine. Maybe they can improve them by making them a little longer, but for someone with big hands like me, I think they feel nice. Fine. My biggest issue when it comes to the controls though is the joysticks, because they stick out so much farther than all of the other controls. I wish they hadn't gone with such tall sticks, because it doesn't just look out of place, it actively hurts the device's pocketability. This became apparent to me the day I got this thing when I was taking it to the gym, and I put it in my pocket only to take it out once I got there to a device with one of the joysticks not on it. Now before anyone comes for me in the comments, I do think there are benefits to having removable joysticks on portable handhelds, like devices like this. I just don't think it was really necessary for this device. If the joysticks were closer together, maybe like a 3DS circle pad like Bob Wolf recommended in his review, then this would be a non-issue, because you wouldn't have to worry about large joysticks rubbing against the side of your pocket or the official carrying case I got with it and falling off without you realizing it. It also isn't just as easy as removing the joysticks. When you take them off, there's also this rubber ring that goes underneath it that the sticks look really weird without, and if you lose that, it's not the end of the world. I just think it looks really weird and out of place, so I don't like it without those rubber rings. Don't get me wrong, I think the joysticks work really well for what they are, but in my opinion, having such large sticks on a device that's probably supposed to be a flat slab you can throw in your pocket or bag and just play wherever is a really weird design choice. Like I just said, the joysticks work really well. I think they work really well in all of the emulators that require them. I just wish they weren't so damn tall. The base INEO software is good enough for what it is, but their stock home launcher and game launcher were pissing me off, so I just installed Daigisho and made that the default home screen, so whenever I click the home button to close out of a game, it goes to that instead of the original INEO launcher. Neither are bad, and I've actually heard that the game launcher is really good for what it is, but I'm just more familiar with Daigisho, so I'm probably not switching anytime soon. Emulation on here is probably what you'd expect out of something trying to be a modern day GBA. It's not at all impressive with its Helio G99 processor and 8GB of RAM, at least in the model I bought, but it can get up to some GameCube and 3DS emulation if configured correctly with it, which is really cool, but let's be real, that's not why you're buying this thing. What you will be buying this for is GBA games, and let me tell you, those games look beautiful on this display, since it's a perfect 4x upscale from the original GBA. All the GBA games I've played on here so far look beautiful. They look absolutely amazing on this IPS display, and I love it. It being a 4x upscale from the original GBA also means that it's a 3:2 aspect ratio, which is weird for like every other system aside from GBA. The games look fine. You can have GameCube games fill the screen, which looks nice enough, but this screen really is perfect for GBA games and very little else. That doesn't mean any other game will look horrible on this display. I think a lot of them will look fine or good. It just means that the XX black bars that you'd get in the different emulators might be weird. This is kind of a rant, this is kind of just my own stupidity, but why does RetroArch need so much customization to just work well? I had to follow a video guide that Retro Game Corps made like years back about setting it up on the Retroid Pocket 2 to get it working in a way that made sense. Which, I mean, I get that RetroArch is very customizable, but I would like to get to a point where I could just open a game, select a core, and go. But it seems like we're not there yet. Once I got it working though, I had a fabulous time. Still pisses me off though that closing the app, even for a single second, will reset all of my progress in the game. But I can look past that because I know how useful of an app it is. And now I know to make a save state before I close every game. So that's helpful. RetroArch is very useful for a lot of older systems, but not everything is going to run well on there. So I have been dabbling in other emulators like Dolphin, Drastic, Mupen 64, and Lime 3DS now that Citra isn't being officially supported anymore. Mupen and Drastic will work well right out of the gate. You're probably going to want to change the screen layout in Drastic though, because the default has them lined up vertically, which makes no sense for a device like this. Dolphin and Lime 3DS are a different story because obviously not everything is going to run super well, but there are a few things you can do to get it running, to get games running better. If you're going to try out Lime 3DS, I recommend going into the settings and changing the default graphics backend from OpenGL, I think it is, to Vulkan. Seems simple, but it does help with performance a lot. And for Dolphin, I'm just using an MMJR2 release I've had on my SSD for a while that I think you can find on archive.org. I set it to Vulkan and to stretch the aspect ratio to the entire screen along with the widescreen hack. The latter is optional, but I think Vulkan helps out a lot. If you're only going to do one of them, do that one. So yeah, emulation on here isn't really the most mind-blowing thing, but I don't really expect it to be for a device so compact, especially since it's trying to replicate a 20-year-old handheld console. This is probably the most premium Game Boy S device you'll see, aside from maybe the Analog Pocket, and the price definitely reflects that, because at the cheapest, it's 2 times what the original GBA was at launch, and at most, it's like close to 3 times. Yeah, the price is also asking a premium, which makes this thing a lot harder to recommend, because I can only really imagine people playing GBA games and below on this thing, and $200 to $280 is very steep just for that. And to be honest, that's really the only group I'd really recommend this thing to, people who want to play GBA games and below, because there are so many other devices that can play more for like the same price. And since this is so expensive, you have to really want to play GBA games in the original aspect ratio on a device this small to justify the price. It kind of sucks because I absolutely love this thing, but I'm not sure a lot of people are going to want to pay upwards of $280 just to play GBA games, when there are so many other devices, like I said, at a similar price point or cheaper that can play GBA games and more without the weird aspect ratio. I mean, for like $50 more, you can get yourself an Odin 2, which can play up to Nintendo Switch games. But don't tell Nintendo I said that. I meant Dreamcast. You don't care about that. I don't know. I really love this thing and want to recommend it to literally everybody I know, but that price point is so steep for something that's perfectly optimized for GBA games, but not for like GameCube, not for 3DS, and consoles like that. It's up to you whether you buy this thing or not, but I would really only recommend it to you if you wanted to play a large library of GBA games and don't really care about much else. Maybe like retro systems, like more retro than the GBA. But like, I recognize that that is such a small group of people, but I feel like it's the only group of people who would spend this much money on a device like this. All that aside, I still love this thing. My issues with the joysticks and the price are something that I can easily look past because I've already bought the device and I won't be using the joysticks that much anyways. And they're just things I can look past and play this thing for long periods of time. And hey, it's getting me to play a lot of old GBA games that I wouldn't otherwise. But these are just my own opinions. What do you guys think? Do you think this is overkill or too expensive? Do you think this is a cool product and you're gonna buy one, or is it too niche for you? Let me know in the comments down below, and I'll see you next week. Goodbye!